Alright friends, it's T-Man and I'm back with a new video, and you could say I'm doing a reaction video and maybe slightly educational, kind of, talking about stuff, but so yeah, I'm gonna do a reaction video to this guy right here. He's an aesthetic slave, Broski, aesthetic slave. That's right, he's slaved themselves to the aesthetics of calisthenics. Okay, so his name is Jack H. Woods. Jack H. Woods. So Jack H. Woods says, the 6 movements you must be doing for a great body. I would agree with this. I mean, everything works until it stops working, but this is very specific though.
I have used just 6 movements over the past 5 years in my training to take my physique from this to this, building effectively all the muscle I could want, and at the same time built the strength in my...
There you go. So what is he doing? He's doing calisthenics, and calisthenics is mostly eccentric exercise, which is associated with what? An increase in sarcomere number of muscle fibers and myofibers and myofibrils and a bunch of stuff, and new fibers and yada yada yada. Okay, more muscle. You're gonna get real muscle. He's pretty muscular here too. Look at this. So yeah, this is real strength. When people say to me strength, they think strength like I gotta lift a heavy weight in the concentric form in the gym, like heavy bench press. I gotta do a heavy OHP. Gotta do a heavy deadlift and stuff like that. And those things are not carry over to this because you can't do any of these. Even though you could probably deadlift 500, I can guarantee you're weak. You can't do any of these calisthenic movements, what he's doing. You couldn't press your shoulders on the floor like he did there. You couldn't do this either, this type of planche. You can't do any of these things. Want to know why? Because you're weak. Because concentric exercise is not associated with muscle growth. It's just associated with what? Force production. You got a force. You increase the you got a nervous system. You strengthened the nervous system, but you never strengthened your body. That's the problem. People wonder, hey, how come I can't do any of these muscle ups and these things that these guys are doing? I can lift a heavy weight. I can bench press 500. But how come you can't do any of these? Are you strong if you can't do any of them? See what I mean? You can't do any of them because you're weak, because you never built any muscle. This guy's building muscle. See what I mean? But of course, it'll reach a certain plateau to a degree because he's using body weight. But the more stretches he does, the more damage he does in the eccentric form doing these movements, the more muscle he gets until he can't get any more. That's why they start putting weights. They start doing dips with weights because they want more of it. They get addicted to it. They want to get stronger. See what I mean? You want to get better at lifting a heavy weight. This guy, he wants to get stronger. He doesn't want to get good at lifting heavy weights in the gym. Get it? He wants to get stronger.
Ability to move my body like this, unlock all the physical abilities I could want from it as well.
See that? If you can't do that, and you can bench press 300, 400 pounds, if you couldn't do exactly what he did off the floor and raise your legs up like that and standing like that, then you're weak. See what I mean? It's useless. All your training in the gym was useless because you never built any muscle. What's the point of going to a gym? I know. You want to get nervous system strong. You want to get nervous system strong. You don't want to get bodily strong. You want to get nervous system strong. Okay. All right, go ahead. But you'll never win in any real strength sports, like physical strength sports, like arm wrestling or doing any of this. You won't win. And you won't be able to do any of these things because you're weak. You never built your body strong. You never built any muscle. I know. You're going to say, but I bulked. I got big. I bulked. No. You never built any muscle because concentric doesn't build muscles, bro. Lifting heavy weights. That doesn't build muscles. Eccentric does. But people will never, they still will never understand that. They just can't fathom it in their small, puny brain. They just can't understand that.
This video I'm going to show you exactly what those movements are and why, if you train them properly, they are all you ever need for these goals. But stick with me because these movements themselves, when trained using a traditional approach, aren't actually enough. And using those traditional methods, you're going to struggle to ever build a comprehensive strength program, which is why traditionally strength training has become so complicated and hard to get right. There's an important difference in the way that you actually train these movements that if you ignore, you're leaving a huge amount of gains on the table, and it's going to lead you to getting fewer or no results. But if you do get it right, it means that just these 6 movements are all you ever need to maximize strength and muscle gain in under 40 minutes of training a week. A really common problem I see in strength training and have been through myself a lot in the past is doing a bunch of different exercises, having a really extensive program, seemingly covering everything and not making tangible progress in any of it.
Exactly, because lifting concentrically will never make you progress. In calisthenics, they do a lot of eccentric work. Eccentric work. That's why they're built. They look muscular and they look built because they do a lot of eccentric exercise. You start looking more and more built. If you do more eccentric exercise, which I haven't done in like decades or years even, I just started doing them now. Like I started doing them more vigorously now than ever. Because, you know, COVID and everything messed up everything. I would have done it back then, but whatever. You're just going to start looking more, you're going to look more dense, very dense, strong, thick, and you start getting more muscular doing this stuff.
Result of the traditional method of strength training in the fitness industry has massively overcomplicated what's required to build full body strength and mobility and made us think we need a million different exercises to cover all our bases, depending.
I agree. You only need one exercise, the eccentric exercise. That's all you need. How you use the eccentric exercise is up to you, whether you use it for eccentric overload using weights or using body workouts, calisthenic body workouts. Yeah.
On our unique goals and strength deficits, postural issues, etc., etc. If you go and do some research online, it's very easy for your strength routine to quickly become a laundry list of stuff that takes plenty of time to do but doesn't work. You keep yourself really busy, your program looks good, but you don't reach your strength goals and your physique doesn't change.
Exactly. Physique doesn't change. You never reach your strength goals. You think you got stronger because you lifted a heavy weight, and in fact, your body never got strong because you never built any muscle. So you can't perform any of these things physically. Your body will always be weak when it comes to like football or running, try to do calisthenics. It'll be weak. It'll be constantly weak if you don't build muscle. That's a problem. You won't perform in these other sports well because you have a weak body. You have a good push. You have a good concentric lift, but you have a weak body.
In reality, there is only so much range of motion that we need to build strength in if we want all the muscle mass and mobility possible that our bodies can build. If we map it out, it almost seems too simple, but it's quite straightforward. If we think about upper body training, everything hinges around the shoulder, so we can basically take our shoulder.
That's true, actually. Everything hinges around the shoulders. Yeah, but a lot of other people will tell you that. Maybe they're not thinking about it, but some know that. The OHP, this, that, they do it, the presses and stuff. It all hinges around the shoulders, yes.
Through full range of motion from extension, holding your arm back like this, all the way up to flexion.
I mean, you need your shoulders for your back routine. You need it for your chest. You need it for your shoulder presses, whatever you're doing there. Any press, whether it's bench press, whether it's deadlifting, whether it's, deadlifting, OHP, bench pressing, whatever. All these exercises, your shoulders are involved in it. Man, your shoulders are always involved.
Where it's over your head.
It's probably the most overused muscle in the body, the shoulder. And maybe the arms. If you're using your arms to pull stuff, well, then it's going to be overused too. So it's one of the two that are the most overused muscles that's why the Olympians, if you see Olympians, wow, they have big fucking shoulders and they have big biceps and shit because there's a lot of tearing going on. There's a lot of eccentric tearing going on there.
That is basically complete range of motion pushing. And then if we reverse that and go from flexion down to extension, then we've covered full range of motion pulling. Now you've also got your elbow joint, but we can think of that as a kind of accessory joint that helps the shoulder do the primary movement. Now, if we think about the lower body, so if we think about the range of motion of the hip, we can basically go from full flexion, sitting in the bottom of the squat, to full extension. I think of the top of a jumping position. And again, like with our upper body, our knee assists with that to make that movement pattern happen. And then we think about the reverse, it's hip flexion, so moving from full extension to a full.
Right, that's an eccentric movement. The bottom part there where the knee is bent. That's eccentric.
Flexed squat position or from standing to squatting. Very simply.
Yeah, and you don't even have to stand straight. You don't have to stand straight. As long as you squat eccentrically a lot, you're going to get stronger down there.
Those are basically, in terms of building strength and mobility,
You're going to build muscle. Muscle is built in the eccentric form. It's not built in concentrically.
we can train those ranges of motion. That's the basic theory. Now, the issue that comes up when we look at traditional strength training is this. Traditional methods of strength training only train one specific portion of that range of motion in an exercise. If you look at the range we have in the shoulder, it's quite a lot from all the way back behind our body to above our head. Or if you look at the hip, it's all the way from this deep squatting position all the way to fully extended standing up. If you look at traditional strength training, whether it be in the gym or using bodyweight exercises, machines, barbells, whatever, no exercise trains either of those entire ranges of motion in either direction at max intensity through the full thing. At best, we get a small portion, maybe 10%, that actually reaches a point of failure on our max effort reps. And that is because...
That's why I've been starting to do it. I've been starting to do it full range, completely full range, full max to the bottom. That's the first time, man, I've ever screamed in my entire life, man. I have to keep screaming just to get the weight up a bit, to get it up after I'm down at the bottom, because I don't like the feeling of it, because nobody does. Nobody likes eccentrics because it's damaging and it's uncomfortable. That's why. You see people in the gym, if they ever do full eccentrics and they start screaming or yelling, it's because it's uncomfortable and they don't like it. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Of something called the strength curve, which basically describes the fact that for any movement pattern, we don't have even strength throughout the lot of it. But the movements we use to train those movement patterns.
Well, like, he doesn't really understand it. Yeah, you don't get strength from the loads. Listen to what he says, the loads, because it's eccentric. The load is going down with gravity. It's the velocity, it's going down. That's what's causing the damage. That's what's going to get you to adapt by your muscles by growing bigger and stronger. That's how they adapt, by growing more muscles, bigger and stronger. See what I mean? Then you get physical strength. You get muscular, physical, natural strength. You increase your natural strength. You increase your natural physical strength to do those body movements like he was doing. But if you don't do that, if you go to a gym and you lift weights, well, that isn't the same. That's why people, they look at calisthenics, they don't understand it. They go, look at these guys, calisthenics, they look at bodybuilding, and then you get these crazy people in the gym, they're trying to compare and say, well, I'm stronger than you because I can lift a heavy weight. Well, in fact, the calisthenic guy is stronger than you, is always going to be stronger than you. Never mind about lifting a heavy weight concentrically. Physically, they're going to dominate you physically, because they're physically stronger than you, because they have more muscle on their body. You don't. See what I mean? You can't do any of those things that they can do with their body. Yeah, go and try it and find out.
Have a fixed level of resistance, meaning that all but one tiny portion of the range of motion, there is a gap between our maximum potential strength and the strength that we're demanding of ourselves with the exercise.
No, there isn't, because you're going with gravity and you can handle more load going down, way more load going down than going up. Like fucking, I don't know. If you were using 40, you probably could do, 200 going down. See what I mean? On whatever motion you're using.
For instance, if you think about a bench press, when you fail at pushing the barbell up, it's always at a specific point in the rep. It's about halfway when you're maximally mechanically disadvantaged and it's harder. No one ever fails their rep of bench press at the very bottom of the rep or at the very top. It just doesn't happen. And that's not because the weight of the barbell is changing. It's always a fixed load. If you think about the force required to move the barbell, it's always at the same level depending on how much weight is on the bar.
Yeah,
but our potential, our strength potential, changes across the range of motion. And so at the start, I've got a bit more strength. As I reach the middle point of the rep, the sticking point where things get really heavy. Imagine doing a 1 rep max that you fail. You reach this point towards the middle where it's impossible. If you get past that sticking point, or your spotter helps you, suddenly things get much easier again, and towards the top, it's a piece of...
And how does your spotter help you? By lifting the weight up and you lowering it, doing the eccentrics. That's how you do it. Yeah, more eccentrics.
Cake. And that's what...
So that your body can adapt to the weight by growing bigger and stronger. That's how it does it.
Because of the strength curve. Your body's own mechanical ability to produce force changes depending on the positioning of your body. And that's just due to biomechanics. You can look at the physics of it and whatever, but it doesn't really matter. When we're trying to build strength, we're trying to signal our bodies to grow strong.
And this is relative. The word he says, we're trying to build strength. Are you trying to build nervous system strength? Like what strength are you trying to build? Look, if you're trying to build muscular strength, let's put it this way, muscular strength, muscle, so you're stronger, physically stronger, then yes, eccentric exercise. Yeah.
Build muscle tissue, improve their performance, their mobility. The thing that signals.
Right, there you go. Build muscle tissue, increase your performance, and yada, yada, yada. Okay, that comes much after. But this is not based on performance. This is based on adaptations.
That progress is the proximity of the force we're demanding on our muscles to their maximum ability to produce force. So
the force that's being demanded. So there's a force going down, a heavy force of weight pulling you down with gravity. That's what's going to cause this damage in the muscle fiber, get it to adapt, become growing back bigger and stronger.
Intensity, the closer we are to failure, to maximum level exertion, the stronger the signal that we send and the more gains we make. In this rep of bench press, if I've
I would agree with him,
closely matched this to my maximum level of strength, so I'm at the end of a set, it's getting really heavy and I'm only just able to get it up, trying as hard as possible through that sticking point. At best, I basically train this portion of the range of motion really effectively or maximally effectively. The rest is pretty lackluster. All of this is somewhat intense, but it's far from maximum. And then we have this whole section here and here where we're basically doing nothing. We're not getting any specific range strength gains throughout that whole section of the range of motion.
Well, I disagree with him. Because when you fail there in the middle, now you have somebody lift the weight for you and you lower it. That's all you keep doing, lowering as many eccentrics as you can do until you fail at those eccentrics. It's not based on, look, man, it's based on failing in the number of sets that you're doing, not in the number of reps. See what I mean? You have a number, let's say a goal, 12 repetitions. I'm not talking about going past 12 repetitions and failing, being an endurance athlete and failing and going, oh, I got more endurance now. I'm talking about failing failing in the sets that you can't do any more sets after. When you try to rep them out, that's it, you're done.
And so what this means is, we need multiple max intensity reps just to get a decent amount of work. Sure. And that also means then multiple sets of building up to that level, which we'll talk about in other videos. But more specifically for us here, it means that there's a lot of range of motion we're not training and therefore not gaining in terms of strength, in terms of mobility, and in terms of muscle mass that we could build in response to that max intensity.
And that's concentric lifters. They miss out on all of that.
Training. And so the result of this, if we're talking about selecting exercises, selecting movements for a comprehensive strength program, assuming we do want to build as much strength, muscle, and mobility as possible, using traditional fixed resistance strength training, it means that each exercise on its own is quite cheap. If we said that this is the range of motion for a basic movement pattern, let's call it horizontal pushing, like the bench press. We'll talk about this more in a second, but that's basically taking the first half of your shoulders flexion range of motion, so from max extension to about halfway through its flex position. This is about half the shoulders range of motion in a flexion direction. Horizontal pushing, the pattern that a bench press trains. In terms of max effort work, the bench press only maybe trains one slice properly at max intensity, like that. But we still have, for our movement pattern of horizontal pushing, a whole bunch of range of motion that we want to train because we want to make all that progress. And so...
Not necessarily. Yeah, range of motion. Yeah, okay. So it goes up and down from this position, up and down. He's talking about full range. Your shoulders can move all the way around. That's what's causing these damages to the shoulder muscles, because the range of motion that they're using is further. That's why the front delt, I have to move my arm. Some people stand straight and they lift their arm up. They throw weights up in the air and then let them go down again. The problem with that is your shoulder has a very long range of motion. So my arm, I have to start all the way from behind. I let my arm go all the way back and I let it pull the weight, pull a heavy weight forward. And I can only go so high anyways. And then I let it pull it down and it rotates my shoulder all the way back really high. Yeah. Even when I'm doing like on a cable machine, if I have like 200 pounds on there, 300 pounds, I let my shoulder do the work, but I let it drag it. See, my hand has to pass my body to the left side all the way across. So it has to come from all the way across and go all the way here. But most people, they start from the side of their leg and they fly the weight. They go up and down to the side of their body. That is not causing any damage to the shoulder because the range of motion in the shoulder is a lot further than you think. It's the most mobile part in your body, has the most range of motion in your body. That's why you're not really training your shoulders properly. That's why they're small. People complain why the shoulders are small. That's why now when I gone back into the gym, I figure all these things out. I already have a plan in my mind. I already know. People are looking at me laughing, maybe thinking, what am I doing? Why am I doing that? I don't care what they think, and I don't care what they're laughing about. Actually, I look much better now because I don't have the problems that I had before, like the nerve damage and all that. I was really just fucked up, man. I look terrible. I look so much better now, but whatever, because I eat a lot of meat and shit, natural animal products, whatever. The point is, the range of motion, the shoulder area, people are just partially using the range and they're never really getting any adaptations there. So calisthenics, they use full range of motions in their shoulder. They use it a lot. There's a lot of eccentric, there's a lot of damage, and there's a lot of muscular growth. They're getting fucking bigger and stronger.
The result is that, yeah, cool, we've got our bench press in our program. We're training it hard, intensely. We're building up strength on it. We're doing everything we can do with that movement. It means that we still need maybe another 9 movements, assuming this was about 10% of that range of motion.
Right. It's like the rear delt. You'll see people, they'll squeeze, they'll push the rear delt. Like they'll keep their arms aligned and push it. But in fact, there's more range of motion there. So I do it crisscross on the cable, but I go super heavy. I may put like 85 kilos on each side, maybe 85 kilos, and, drop to the floor and just fly him, but crisscross. Why crisscross? Because the range of motion. I want my arm to start all the way from the left side and meet to the right side. And I want my left arm to go from the right side to the left side. I don't want them to go straight up and down, pushing, like flying it or something, just from my leg area, my body area, and behind. I don't want it to go from there. I want it to go all the way across because I want it to get damaged. That's the whole point. That's why people, they don't do full range. I watch them in the gym. They don't do any full ranges of motions. They fuck up there. That's why they're never ever able to progress and get more strength in their shoulders and other parts in these parts because the range of motion
is probably being pretty generous if you're talking about maximum intensity. We still have 90% of the range of this movement pattern still left not optimally trained, and so theoretically we'd then need another 9 different movements just to cover that movement pattern and train it properly. So even if we do our best bench pressing possible, it's still a 90% inefficiency as a movement for something that's trying to train horizontal pushing. And as I said, that's ignoring the fact that most sets take 80% of the set just to build up to the reps where you are almost failing, training at max intensity, which takes...
I agree. People are never using their shoulders for full range of motion. That's why they're not getting strong in a lot of their lifts, because they're missing out on full range. They're missing out on the eccentric. And since the shoulder has more range of motion, it's not getting eccentrically damaged and it's not coming back bigger and stronger. And that's the biggest issue. That's why I keep telling people, do focus on eccentrics. Stretch that fucking muscle, bro, in that shoulder and shit and everywhere else, whatever. Build up those muscles. Stop wasting your time.
More down to a 2% efficiency. We've got other videos discussing that in more depth. So, what is the solution?
This is a good video, but if you don't really understand what he's trying to tell you, but maybe you do, I don't know, then you wouldn't know. You wouldn't understand. From your experience would tell you. You understand exactly what he's trying to say. The shoulder has a very wide range of motion, and none of you people lifting in the gym focus on that, using that full range of motion. Like he said, you're probably using like 10% of it or whatever. There's 90% not being used.
to this problem, because if we were trying to cover all our range of motion for all our basic movement patterns, doing it this way is going to take a lot of different exercises, and getting it done in 6 is not feasible, as you can probably already imagine. If you thought about this,
He's right. It's not feasible. It's going to take a lot longer. It does take me a lot longer in the gym to do that because of the range of motion in the shoulder. But what I do is I compensate. I still use a long range of motion, but I compensate by doing heavy eccentric loads now. That's the difference. I started doing heavy eccentric loads for everything. And so that's how I compensate. See what I mean?
range of motion spectrum like a rainbow, each little section a different color, from red at one end range of motion all the way to purple at the other end range. Normal gym exercises, bench press, pull-ups, cable machines, only target one color. Bench press gets you green, and so if you want to have the full spectrum of colors, you need to insert a different exercise for each color itself individually. A really good example of this is squats. If we're trying to work the full range hip extension from a fully flexed squatting position up to a fully extended standing position, squats, just like the bench press, only train one little section here. Maybe you've got green covered by the actual squat, because there's that one section in the lower middle part of the squat where you get stuck. As soon as you're past that, the top becomes super easy. Looks very much like a bench press. Up here is just a piece of cake. And so if we want to then train high end hip extension, we need to add in more movements like deadlift might be up here.
I know what he's saying. When you fail at the eccentric, you'll start to just doing pushing at the concentric at some point. Well, yeah, that happens to people.
To train this part, and then okay, we want to train slightly higher, maybe we do a box squat or a hack squat, and then okay, I want to train also my knee extension right at the top, so then we might add in.
Again, this is just really what he's just saying is train eccentrically. Box squat. A box squat is no good. You need full range because you need damage in there. It's got damage. It's not going to damage on the box, man. It's not damaging there.
A knee extension there, and then I want to train really high end, like deep violet level hip extension, so then I might add in rack pulls as well, like the top part of the deadlift. And so we put in all these different movements for our lower body just to try and train. It is a large range of motion from squat to standing, but to train each of those bits we need to add in all these different exercises, one per color, and then we're still missing parts of the rainbow. There's colors that aren't even there because it's just very hard to design an individual exercise for each specific section of the range of motion that inevitably, even if you've got a really good program, it's comprehensive and you're training it all really hard, you're still going to have gaps. It's just a very difficult exercise to engineer this using this approach of fixed resistance.
Yeah, I'm going to agree.
Exercises. So if we want a program that's comprehensive and covers the entire rainbow for all our movement patterns, what the hell do we do? The answer lies in the strength curve. Now, what we've got with fixed resistance exercises is inherently one level of force required across the full range of motion. But we can't adapt the strength curve because that's just inherent in the human body and how it moves. But we can change the resistance. And so if we adjust the difficulty of the movements as we train a rep, what we can do is match the difficulty to the strength curve. And so rather than having a max intensity portion of the rep just here, we can have the rep max intensity throughout the entire thing. And it's not that complicated to do, because if
It's not. See what else he has here. It's getting boring now.
you can just keep adjusting how much lean we put on the movement, how far forward we get our shoulders from our hands, it allows us to do exactly this and match it so that not just that hard section of the bench press occurs, but that level of intensity is reached all the way through from deep.
That's why people do dips. They do dips to get the full range of motion in the shoulder. But they don't realize that doing their dips, their sets and reps, they don't realize that it's based getting muscles to damage is based on an overworking of that muscle. Now that you're a trained individual coming in the gym, okay, you're trained. It's an overworking of that muscle. See what I mean? And even if you wanted to get it to damage again with the same weight, you're gonna have to overwork it 3-4 times more than you did the beginning and the first time to try to re-damage it with the same weight that you used. That would be that you were unaccustomed to doing that, right? Every time you do something that you're unaccustomed to doing, you most likely will get some damage in your shoulder. So if you're accustomed to doing 5 by 10 the first time, well, if you come back and do 10 by 5, 10 by 10, 5 by 10 or 10 by 10, then if you come back 10 by 10, that's unaccustomed. You weren't accustomed to doing that, your shoulders. They'll get damaged again, even using the same weight. Depends on how much you put into it. I don't know. It's up to you. But like I said, either you're unaccustomed, unfamiliar, untrained doing those things will get this damage, or overworking it will get that damage. Overworking it like crazy. Yeah. These guys are using body weights and overworking that muscle like crazy, causing it to damage in the eccentric form. That's how it damages. Then what does it do? It has to adapt by doing what? By growing bigger and stronger. But if you don't eat, it's not going to grow either. You still have to eat, man. But whatever. You have to be in a positive nitrogen balance.
Keep shoulder flexion all the way up.
And you can increase some of this force production by eating a lot. When you eat a lot and you're in a positive nitrogen balance and you're anabolic, well then if you're anabolic, you've converted the catabolic hormone to an androgen, so it doesn't have to compete with the myocytic androgen receptor, giving you more force production. Yeah.
Up to the point where we're pressed out horizontally as far as possible. Looking at the squat movement pattern, again, a back squat just targets that one tiny portion, that 10%. But if we stacked on, say, 75% of our body weight in weighted vest and did a single leg squat and just assisted ourselves as little as possible throughout the range of motion, then all the way up to quite close to the top.
Okay, you don't have to do that, what he did. You can assist yourself by just pushing yourself up to the top and then let your body go down with the weight. He's still a little bit wrong. They still don't understand what's going on here. See what I mean? People do certain exercises and they don't even understand what's building muscle or how are they getting this? What's happening there? And it's so simple. Just know the difference between eccentric, concentric. Get it? That's all you have to know. You have to know a full range. What's a full range? Eccentric, concentric, full range, right? What's a partial concentric? Partial concentric. What's a partial eccentric? Partial eccentric. What's the difference between partial concentric and partial eccentric? Well, you can handle heavy loads going concentrically, but you can't handle them heavily going down. Now, could you? No, because you'll damage yourself. You'll rip the muscle off the bone. Okay. So what's the difference between eccentrically and then concentrically? Well, you can handle heavier loads going down and coming up, partially up, because if you were to do a full range and coming down, you'd fucking damage yourself. You understand me? That's the difference. So one is based on damage, the other one's based on nervous system. Now, can you do just a concentric exercise? Of course you can. Just press something, right? Put a weight there, put it on top and push it, whatever. You understand me? Without any eccentric. Can you do just an eccentric? Of course you can. Grab that suitcase or that weight and then just lower it to the floor. Keep lowering it to the floor, whatever. See what I mean? So people, they don't even know how to train properly. They don't know anything about training.
We can achieve maximum intensity, keep it at maximum difficulty, and therefore all the way.
Yeah, he's got some intensity, maximum. You don't need to do that. You just need to drop your legs down to the floor with the weight, but it has to be controlled. That's all. It has to be with max intensity and controlled going down. It can't be just I went down and then as I was getting to the bottom, it just dropped. I just dropped on my knees like a loser. Boom. You know what I mean? It has to be controlled going down. Just enough so then you can come back bigger and stronger. Now, when you can handle more, then you can do it instead of injuring yourself.
Until we no longer need assistance, we can work at 100% intensity and get the benefits of doing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So he's trying to train himself that midpoint. He's trying to train himself probably right here so that intensity, he has all the intensity of the up and the down force at the same time, right in the middle. He wants to keep it there in the middle the whole time.
Like I said,
you can do that in the gym too. That's not hard to do.
Back squat, a box squat, a hack squat, a deadlift, a rack pull, all in the one movement. And with 1 rep a week, cover your entire lower body's extension, range of motion. So, given that principle of adjusting the load to keep it at 100%, so that we train not only the portion of the range of motion that is difficult for a given exercise, but we actually make the entire range of motion maximally difficult intentionally and therefore gain the whole spectrum. We gain strength and muscle across the full range of motion. What range?
Yeah, you're getting some concentric strength, and you're getting a lot of eccentric, but through muscle. Like he said, you're getting muscle and strength and whatever.
Ranges of motion we want to train. And this brings me back to the original model of ranges of motion. And at this point, it's really simple because as long as we train our shoulder through full range of motion, flexion, and then extension, and as long as we train our hips through full range of motion, extension, and flexion, then we're good. And so in achieving that, we basically just need 4 movements for upper body, one that can take us from full shoulder extension.
That's like people always going like, you have to bring the weight down slow, or you have to bring it up really slow. What he's trying to propose is that you're in the middle. You're between the eccentric, concentric in the middle with maximum intensity there. See what I mean? You did do a concentric and an eccentric, but he's trying to hold that position in the middle a lot.
To part way through that range of motion, and then another movement to take us from there up to full shoulder flexion, and then we need the reverse, so something that can take us from shoulder flexion down to midway, and then from there to full shoulder extension. And so to achieve that,
yeah, it's too much talking here, man. I don't know what's going on.
this is again body weight training allows adjust the difficulty across that full spectrum. As
This is body weight training again.
left here that we haven't technically covered is hip flexion. The person who has pioneered a lot of work in these kind of reverse squatting motions is Ben Patrick, knees over toes. He has some cable things I think he does with that.
Knees over toes guy, yes, okay.
These 6 movements literally cover everything possible, and you get your training done in under 40 minutes a week whilst maxing out progress. And
All right, friends, tell me what you think about that. Like, subscribe, support the channel. See you in the next one. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, calisthenics, dude.